and today we are going to talk about cloud security best practice. So, imagine hosting your application without securing it in any way. How long do you think your application would survive without any illegitimate access to it? It is vital to increase cloud security today. Privacy and control network access when using any cloud or increase security when using cloud to host your applications. With a specific industry like banking and finance having stricter rules on data storage, data residency, and data sovereignty, everyone's concerned about their information and worried about its security. At the same time, it is at most importance for a public cloud provider like AWS to protect the confidentiality, the integrity, and availability of its systems and data. So let's talk about the common AWS security challenges today. Security is the most critical aspect of the cloud, which applies to AWS, of course. It is also essential to understand that the security cloud is a shared responsibility. AWS takes much more responsibility for security. However, users and clients must take responsibility for access control, audit logging, monitoring, encryption, and so many others. This can ensure that the company can pinpoint the exact issue by reviewing the logs if something goes wrong in the AWS environment. Even though AWS provides a certain level of protection, it simply cannot cover all aspects of security compliance. Researching yourself is essential to ensure you don't expose yourself to attackers. Let's talk about an example. If you have a plain text credentials in environmental variables, AWS cannot do anything for you. You must make sure that you are not using credentials in your applications in plain text format. Following, we were talking about some challenges about the industry is facing when using cloud for application deployment. Let's start with DDoS and DOS attacks. Distributed denial of service, the DDoS and denial of service attacks affect how applications work by overloading website servers so that they cannot respond to legitimate or valid user requests. This can result in loss of reputation, brand, and revenue as well. Data breaches. When storing critical or business data in the cloud, there is a risk of data theft. A data breach can be intentional or intentional and is attributed to hacking or malware attacks. Data privacy or data confidentiality. It is one of the main concerns of the financial services industry when using the cloud to store their data. On one hand, it has its advantage. On the other hand, there are concerns related to data breaches, data privacy violations, penalties by data protection regulations for data security breaches. Resource sharing. The cloud is designed so that hardware resources such as memory, storage, and CPU can be shared. Although it looks very easy, it also has its security issues. This makes it difficult for organizations to ensure that data is only accessed by authorized persons and not available to others. Security risks for financial institutions. Financial institutions are often targeted by cyber criminals and are at higher risk compared to other business. Confidential bank data can be at risk if security is compromised and can cause major financial and reputational damage, leading to massive data loss and theft. Sorry. In successful attacks, the unencrypted data stolen by attackers can be misused and can land financial institutions in serious trouble. This isn't always the case. Data may be not stolen, but sometimes altered by intruders. This altered data can be difficult to identify and cause financial institutions to incur in millions of dollars in damages. In some cases, compromised end-user devices such as cell phones or computers used to connect to banks can transfer malware that can attack bank networks. To protect some institutions or any other organizations from such risks, Intrusion detection or intrusion prevention systems are commonly used. Intrusion detection systems play a vital role in identifying potential attacks on systems. Intrusion detection is a strategy in organization that should consider to protect network environments from hackers. It is an ability to monitor and react to application or system misuse. Organizations also should have an automated process such as a proactive identification network vulnerability scanning. It is an essential step to financial organizations or any other organization to strengthen security defenses. So let's talk about the AWS top security best practice and of course how you can use it. On a cloud platform like AWS, there are services used for various purposes such as data storage, accessing productivity tools, and deploying IT infrastructure. In all of these use cases, cloud services allow organizations to move faster. However, using any cloud or AWS service comes with challenges and data security risks. Cloud security practice consists of some general best practices that organizations should follow to secure application environment. These guidelines also show how to successfully lift, change, and operate your cloud business. The new term DevSecOps was coined to build a secure foundation for DevOps initiatives. DevSecOps is about integrating security into your pipeline. It it integrates security into every phase of the software development lifecycle. In the following topics, we will outline a set of security best practices to guide some financial institutions and a lot of industry towards a secure AWS cloud and addressing, of course, AWS cloud security issues. So let's talk about the first one, AWS security best practice number one, DevSecOps automation. DevSecOps is a relatively new term. It introduces security into the software development lifecycle, SDLC. DevSecOps is a collaboration between DevOps development and operations teams, including security teams. In short, DevSecOps is a shared responsibility, and everyone involved in software development has a role to play in building security into the DevOps workflow. To safely do continuous integration and continuous deployment, there are three basic steps in DevSecOps. The first one is build coded and automated security checks in software development and operations. Implementing security policies and practices to ensure that the code is updated as a fix for a vulnerability, for example, is available in the latest software release. Identify failures and mitigate them as early or as quickly as possible. For example, Veracode, check marks, and Fortify help secure software development and testing before moving to production and provides dynamic and static code analysis to detect vulnerabilities and mitigate risk. It is used to review source code and perform quick checks before release. Those kinds of tools scans web applications, mobile apps, and microservices, and also ensures software applications are secure and can test thousands of apps concurrently and get accurate and reliable security feedback in the pipeline. Those tools also provide static analysis and provides automated security feedback for developers in the IDE. The CI/CD pipeline performs a pre-deployment scan and provides clear guidance on how to find, prioritize, and fix issues. Let's talk about security best practices number 2, Amazon Web Application Firewall. AWS WAF is a web application firewall that helps protect applications hosted on the AWS cloud from common web threats that can affect application availability and security, as well as consume infrastructure resources and lead to slowdowns and increased usage of resources. WAF provides AWS security and protects applications or websites hosted on AWS, and is one of the AWS security services provided by AWS Cloud. You can also use the Web Application Firewall to automate security using AWS Lambda to analyze web logs, identify malicious requests, and automatically update security rules. AWS WAF can protect against attacks such as cross-site scripting attacks, SQL injection attacks, and no wrong IP address attacks. Let's talk about AWS security best practice number 3. Amazon security groups. The security group acts as a virtual firewall for EC2 instances on the AWS cloud to control inbound and outbound traffic flow and provide security in the cloud. Security groups operate at the instance level, and each instance can have up to 5 AWS security groups attached to it. You cannot block incoming traffic, but only allow it on a specific port or range of ports. The security group are stateful, and you don't need to add rules to bounce back. For example, a rule that allows traffic on the EC2 instance will automatically allow responses to bounce back from the EC2 instance. The use of AWS security groups is considered one of the AWS security best practices. For example, if you allow connection on port 22 of a given IP, that IP can connect to the EC2 instance on port 22. The connection is also automatically allowed to flow from the EC2 instance through port 22 on the allowed IP. So let's talk about one of my favorite AWS security best practices number 4. Sorry. Threat detection systems with Amazon Guardari. This does not provide security, but it continuously monitors for malicious activity and unauthorized behavior to detect threats and protect accounts, workloads, and data stored in Amazon S3 buckets. Guardari is a smart, cost-effective option for continuous threat detection in the AWS cloud. Guardari uses machine learning, anomaly detection, and built-in threat intelligence to identify and prioritize potential threats. With a few clicks, you can enable Guardari on your AWS account to continuously analyze your network, your account, and data activity. Guardari parses DNS logs, VPC flow logs, CloudTrail S3 data events, and CloudTrail management events. So, for example, Amazon S3 discovery API calls, unauthorized creation of new AMI users, roles or access keys, features of Amazon EC2 instances, generating Amazon RDS snapshots are some of the suspicious behaviors that Guardari's machine learning model can now help you detect in your accounts. And also there are news on these services that can also scans not only S3 buckets and the whole environment, but also Kubernetes services. So you can scan for the non-normal behavior on microservices. And number 5, Amazon Inspector. Amazon Inspector is an automated security assessment service. It helps improve the compliance and security of applications deployed on the AWS cloud and achieve cloud security. It automatically assesses applications for vulnerabilities, exposure, and deviations and produces a detailed report of security findings prioritized by severity level. Amazon Inspector checks EC2 instances for unexpected network accessibility and vulnerabilities in those EC2 instances. For example, government enact various regulations at the local and national level when it comes to the financial sector, which can be difficult to identify. In this case, Amazon Inspector can help enable periodically scheduled vulnerability check audits. This can give the organization confidence to say it is adhering to the best practice and regulatory requirements. So, AWS security best practice number 6, CloudTrail and CloudWatch for monitoring AWS resources. CloudTrail simplifies compliance audits by automatically recording and storing event logs for actions taken in your AWS account, and increasing visibility into your resources and user activity. The Cloud Trail enables AWS account compliance, governance, operational auditing, and risk auditing. It simplifies functional analysis and troubleshooting. For example, if you have enabled CloudTrail in your account, you can track account activity an average of about 15 minutes after an API call happens. If you are not sure who owns the resource created in your account, you can check the trail, get to know it, and take appropriate action in helping. CloudWatch, on the other hand, is another service provided by AWS that can achieve monitoring and observability. It provides data to monitor applications deployed in the AWS account. The same monitoring data can optimize resource utilization and gain insight into application health. You can use CloudWatch to set alarms, receive alerts, view logs and metrics, take automated actions, and uncover insights to help your apps running smoothly. So let's talk about some example. You can be alerted when there are changes in your security group. That is, you can create an alarm triggered when there are configuration changes in AWS security groups. You can also monitor console login failures and be alerted to unsuccessful login attempts to the AWS Management Console. And talking about that, it is a best practice to set some rules and some audits on your root account. Remember, your root account can do anything, and remember to put second factor authentication like MFA, and of course some alerts on CloudWatch for your root account. So let's talk about AWS security best practice number 7, key management system for accessing API, databases, application, compute, and etc., which is Amazon KMS. To perform any type of encryption, a cryptographic key is required. Managing this switch is again a challenging task. AWS KMS, Key Management Services, makes it easy to create and manage these cryptographic keys. It also tracks its use across various AWS security services and applications. AWS KMS is a fully managed centralized key management services from AWS. It is a single point of control for managing cryptographic keys. One can easily create, import, delete, rotate, and execute permissions on keys using KMS. KMS helps increase the security of AWS. So let's talk about AWS security best practice number 8, the cloud security frameworks. So far, I have looked at some challenges, risks, and some of the AWS security best practices. However, there are specific policies, tools, rules, and configurations required to manage the security of a cloud platform. Cloud security frameworks describe the security standards and organizational guidelines. Cloud security frameworks lists important functions for managing cybersecurity-related risks in a cloud-based environment. Cloud security frameworks provide a framework and methodology to help prevent harmful security incidents. Speaking of AWS, the AWS Cloud Infrastructure and Services have been validated against NIST 853 Revision 4, PCI DSS Service Provider Level 1 controls, and have received CIS, the CIS Security Software Certification for the CIS benchmark. So let's see these structures one by one briefly. PCI DSS, the Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard. PCI DSS aims to enhance the global security of payment account data by developing standard and support services that drive education, awareness, and practical implementation by stakeholders. It promotes payment card industry standard for the security of cardholder data worldwide. PCI DSS guides the maintenance of payment security and establishes technical and operational requirements for organizations that accept or process payment transactions. The NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology. NIST is part of the US Department of Commerce and is committed to protecting personal privacy. It provides the set of standards and guidelines for security controls for information systems in the federal agencies. NIST also provides a framework for improving the cybersecurity of critical infrastructure. To ensure sufficient protection of the integrity, confidentiality, and availability of information, federal information systems typically must undergo a formal assessment. The NIST Cybersecurity Framework, the CSF, is supported by governments and industry worldwide as a recommended baseline for any organization. The NIST framework is also used in several countries by Big Four audit firms. So, the CIS, the Internet Security Center. The Center for Internet Security is an independently working nonprofit organization with a mission to make the cyber world a safer place for people, business, and government. It provides best practices for securing IT systems and data on the internet. It works on the development, validation, and promotion of the best method to protect people, companies, and government against cyber threats on the internet. To protect organizations, the CIS offers a number of programs, tools, memberships, and services. SysControl, SysBenchmark, SysCyber Marketplace are some of the offerings that CIS offers. So let's talk about AWS Security Best Practices number 9, end-to-end encryption. End-to-end encryption is a method of encrypting communications and protecting it from third parties. TDE, the transparent data encryption, encrypts data stored on the business, for example, and is compatible with AWS RDS for SQL Server. And of course, Oracle. And TDE automatically encrypts data before it is written to the database or storage, and also decrypts it when it is ready. When it is ready for the database or storage. This type of encryption is used in cases where it is very important to encrypt sensitive data. TDE improves cloud security and helps store sensitive data in an encrypted form in the AWS cloud, and is also one of the best practices to strengthen AWS security. AWS security number 10, penetration testing on AWS. AWS allows its users to perform penetration tests on certain services. 8 services through the beginning of 2023 in their accounts. The user must comply with the policies defined by AWS for such tests. You can perform penetration tests on your AWS account by following some policies and guidelines at penetration testing. You don't need any approval from AWS to run penetration tests on your account. In addition, contracted third parties may perform security assessments that do not violate the policy defined by AWS, but it is recommended that you fill some forms, some pre-approval forms for you to test your environment. So, services allowed for penetration testing: EC2 instances, NAT gateways, and elastic load balancers, RDS and Aurora, CloudFront API gateways, Lambda functions and Lambda Edge, light sail features, and elastic environment like Beanstalk. So, prohibited activities for penetration testing: Route 53, denial of services, port flooding, request flooding, and protocol flooding. And clients cannot execute denial of services, and if they want to run a distributed denial of service attack, they should review the AWS DDoS sandbox testing policy. So basically, if you don't have a default product for you to enhance and harden your security on AWS, you should go to AWS Marketplace. And it is also a best practice to go to the AWS security blog and see the white papers about security, because they will certainly provide the overview that you need to ace your certifications. And on the other hand, you will learn the best practice, for example, for logging, for AWS organization, for encryption, and of course to harden and increase the security of these 10 bullet points that I have told you. On my own experience working as a cloud security professional, I have been working a lot with the tools provided by AWS. For example, when using Guardari, I also recommend that you use Guardari. Doesn't matter if you have any other service, because the machine learning that Guardari provides can helps you gain visibility on what is the most important things to consider about your perimeter exposure. For example, if you have several exposed, and I mean exposed is exposed to the web, to the internet. For example, if you have 20, 40, or 100 EC2 instances with public IP address, you should enable Guard30, because you can have the visibility if you are having some port scanning or enumeration type of attacks and things like that. And also, if you mistakenly have an RDS public database and S3 buckets as well, because Guardari will literally scan and oversee if you are having any kind of attacks. There is another service that I didn't mention that kind of comes in my head right now. It's about AWS Detective. Detective will kind of try to understand what is happening within your CloudTrail and your whole environment with the whole overview, and try to analyze what is normal for your environment. For example, if you're considering all the time using admin permissions to access your environment during the weekdays and on weekends, there are some access it will kind of alert you. The other thing is try to use Security Hub, because Security Hub is not a CSPM, a Cloud Security Posture Management tool, but it provides you the visibility on the scores about security frameworks. For example, it will show you how mature you are on the well architecture framework, on the security perspective, the PCI DSS, and the CIS. So you have some security checks with Security Hub to kind of harden your security. For example, it will kind of match your environment into the security frameworks and into the security best practice. So, for example, if you have several open buckets, legacy or stale access keys, users, and so many other things, you should consider having Security Hub enabled, because it will kind of guide you on what you need to do and how you need to do, and of course achieve a better grade on security within these security frameworks. On the other hand, of course, you need to read a lot on the best practice on security. For example, do not expose your private keys, your admin credentials. Try to enable MFA for all your admin users and also for the normal users. Enforce that mandatory two-factor authentication. And one important thing, do not store personal identifiable information into your S3 buckets without encryption. And try to enable Mace for that, because Mace will scan your buckets for PII information and will let you know if you have any breach on that. So those kind of bad security practice, they are not limited to 10 or 12. You need to start reviewing yourself, start searching yourself on the data breaches that happens, on the attacks that happens on the news. Try to see some security lists, because when you see on the journey, on your DevOps journey or your DevSecOps journey, what you can do to improve your security with, for example, VPC best practice, EC2 best practice, S3 best practice, architectural best practice as a whole, you will have the whole understanding on what you can improve for your environment. So this is very valuable when we talk about cloud security. And of course, as I am saying over and over, cloud security is the new information security guy. You need to understand that to achieve, and of course you achieve a good salary and a great career, because cloud security professionals are in high demand right now, not only on the US but around the world. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world, if you can communicate in English with intermediate level to advanced level, you can of course achieve a high salary, just like I am saying to you right now, because it's not what I am talking, it's the market. The market is demanding cloud security professionals. So if you have any doubt, any suggestion, please let me know. I am here to help you achieve your better salary. My name is Guilherme, and thanks for all.